What's up, everyone? We had a wild day in the stock market as it was just all over the place. Initially, we gapped down as Tesla had a pretty rough investor day and it really put a sour taste in everyone's mouth. But before you know it, the SPY turned green and a lot of stocks were ripping to the upside. In today's video, we're going to explain exactly why this happened, some great setups going into tomorrow, and towards the end of the video, we have a $1 million trade that you won't want to miss. But let's get right into it, Tom.
Yeah, these tech stocks were doing amazing today. Intel was flying up. AMD was actually moving. NVIDIA did very well. Let's look at the heat map really quickly. You can see how tech really led the way. Tesla obviously didn't do the best with their investor day, not really wowing everybody. The financial sector was pretty much all over, but the rest of the market ended up popping up pretty much. And Fed member Bostic actually had some pretty crazy comments today where he said he's in the quarter interest rate camp right now for the next Fed meeting. I know a couple other members are leaning towards 50 basis points, but he still wants to keep it at 25 basis points. So I don't know, very interesting, Mike. And the market really loved this in the middle of the day. It was actually pretty strange to me. I was not expecting this to make the market move up as much as it did. But you can see in the middle of the day here, SPY started really breaking that 394.50 resistance in the middle of the day, and we got that huge explosion pretty much right as all these comments started coming out. But it's going to be insane for the next couple weeks, Mike. You know, we just went on a big downtrend looking at the SPY and a lot of these other stocks. We've been going down pretty much for like the past month or so. So I don't know, we might get a couple days of uptrend coming back in here.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, just like you said, Tom, this movement overall was very surprising. You know, it just came out of nowhere and basically all stocks were just, running. They were blasting to the upside. And what's interesting is that, when we look at the heat map, we can see it ended up being mostly green when it was initially started out pretty red in a decent way. And what's also interesting and worth noting is there's one stock that looks brutal today, and that's Tesla. It's just like staring at you on the heat map. Even with all the positive momentum in the market, Tesla still finished down around 6%. So it's pretty weak. I know a lot of people have their eyes on it, but I feel like Investor Day yesterday just disappointed so many people. And I feel like it's kind of rough that, Tesla, a powerhouse tech stock, couldn't even run up even when the entire market was blasting higher.
Yeah, exactly. It was very hard for them to recover. Honestly, it could have been a little worse, Mike. Like, imagine if they would have closed down there around that low of 186. At least they got back to like 191. But yeah, it's still looking terrible. Nowhere near that close yesterday, which was up above 200. And now that they're back below 200, a lot of people are contemplating that Tesla might start a bigger downtrend back to the downside. And, from the low to the high, Tesla was recently up over 113%. So I don't know, Mike. I feel like Tesla could definitely have a bit more of a downtrend here. I'm not really going to target anything too crazy, but I think 180 is very attainable, and then maybe even 170 below that. But I think 180 in the short term could be pretty big for Tesla. Now, obviously, if the market rips up, Tesla might try to follow it up, but that was a pretty bad break there last night.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that Tesla broke that key $200 support last night, which is a huge level. So going forward, it's going to be a really tough level of resistance as well. So definitely make sure to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. Man, that 200 level is just something else. I could not believe that we broke that with the veracity that we really did. But Mike, there was actually a lot of movement in the market today associated to a lot of gaming stocks, believe it or not. And I saw Activision had a lot of huge news this morning where they actually got the nod from some EU regulators to actually get bought by Microsoft. So this is actually awesome, Mike. I think this is great news. And if we read this article here, there's a lot of great information, but pretty much the big thing is that they're going to have some licensing deals, and that actually is what helped us secure the EU antitrust approval there. So it's good to see, Mike. It looks like this is going to be good for Activision. They had a fantastic run to the upside today, and a ton of other gaming stocks followed along, whether it was EA or Take-Two Interactive, who makes Grand Theft Auto. All these gaming stocks were following along. So it was really awesome to see that. And, Activision has had a lot of play in it lately by some big names. And one of my favorites being Warren Buffett with Berkshire Hathaway. They actually have a 9.5% stake in Activision. That is huge and a crazy arbitrage bet.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's also worth noting for the viewers out there who are not up to date on this Activision deal, basically Microsoft is trying to buy Activision Blizzard, but the problem is that a lot of these regulators are like, hold on a second. Like, if you guys buy Activision Blizzard, you guys are going to have a serious competitive advantage because Microsoft also owns Xbox and Activision Blizzard owns a ton of major games, like Call of Duty is one example. And, that can kind of be like monopoly in certain ways in the gaming market. So a lot of these regulators are like, I don't know if we're going to approve this, but when you have good news coming out of the European Union like this, it's definitely great to see. Now, Activision stock right now is around $78 a share, and if Microsoft is allowed to buy Activision Blizzard, the buyout price will be $95 a share. So if you think the deal will go through, you can buy Activision right now for $78 and get paid by Microsoft for $95 a share. But again, that's a big if. That's if the deal goes through.
Yeah, and it looks like that's sitting like right around 21 to 22%, depending on where you get filled, around 78. So that could be a huge deal, if this ends up happening. And a lot of people did this with the Twitter deal, and a lot of people ended up doing very, very well. And I think that with a big company like Berkshire being into this as well, that just gives me a lot of confidence. Now, I did hear a lot of stuff today where apparently Berkshire got in a little bit before this actually happened. It just ended up being like a stroke of luck, but they are still staying into this. So I don't know, pretty interesting though that they are into this, and that Warren Buffett's made a lot of comments about this arbitrage deal. So I don't know, Mike. I kind of like it with them being in, and I actually might enter this if we start to see a break above 78.50 here. There's a pretty big resistance around 78.
Good stuff. So, Tom, I have to ask you about the SPY. It's been all over the place today. We're still under that key $400 resistance point. What are the main levels going into tomorrow?
Yeah, so we actually got pretty close, I'd say, back up to 400. We ended up bouncing right around 398, 65, 398.70 up here at the high of day today. I don't really see that as like a huge major resistance. I'd rather see like 399 to 400 if we start to go up from here. But the big thing I'm really going to be watching is this 397 support, and then a multiple supports back below there, like 396.50, and then even 394 to 393.50 down there at the bottom. Because, I have a weird feeling, heading into tomorrow that $400 resistance is going to be very hard to break through. And depending on how pre-market goes, we might start to test that pretty early on. Now, if we start to break that and we start to really blast up, watch 401 and then 402 to the upside. Those were pretty big resistances over the past couple weeks. But if we start to fall back down, I'm going to really watch 396 and then obviously then watch for that bigger move down towards like 394, 393. But, we're still in that big range. Just be very careful, guys. There's a bunch of supports and resistances pretty much all throughout this range. And even above 400, like we saw plenty of moves above there this week where it failed to stop at 400, but then rejected it like 401 or 402. So, give or take $1 on some of these as well.
Alrighty. Well, with that being said, let's get into some good setups for tomorrow. One stock I'm watching pretty closely is Netflix, but it's actually to the downside. So even with the awesome run up intraday throughout the entire market, Netflix was kind of weak, just like Tesla. And Netflix has had an amazing run over the past couple months, but over the past couple weeks, it's been pretty rough. There is a pretty strong support right around 309. If it breaks below that, I can see this thing touching like the 305 area and maybe even 304.
Yeah, this thing hasn't been down to there in a long time, Mike. I mean, yeah, it's been on such a good uptrend, and I can't believe that how strongly some of these big tech stocks are kind of like going against the market today. Obviously Tesla had that bad investors day, but it sucks to see Netflix kind of doing this as well. So I like that play to the downside. It definitely underperformed as the day went on. I know we talked a lot about those gaming stocks, and one of my favorites for the next couple of days is going to be Take-Two Interactive. We're actually at a pretty big resistance right around 116. So if we're able to break this to the upside tomorrow, I will watch this for a potential move up. Now, I did see that there was like a bit of like a Sony rumor with Take-Two Interactive over the past couple days. Mike actually found this before we started recording, and I don't know. I thought that was very interesting, Mike. With Activision getting maybe bought out by Microsoft, now maybe Sony might go after Take-Two. Sounds like a very competitive move, because if that deal gets to go through with Activision, you would think that they'd allow Sony to take over Take-Two.
True that. All right. Another stock I'm watching is actually EA, which is very similar to this TTWO play, as they are both in the same industry. But EA, it's bouncing off that 110 support in an amazing way. It's been selling off a little bit over the past couple of weeks, which is actually a good thing in my opinion, because this is more of like an oversold buy the dip type setup. But overall, when you have positive short-term momentum, plus it's bouncing off of a support that it's been holding for a while now, I think it makes for a pretty good setup. So I'm definitely watching EA to the upside over the next couple days.
Yeah, and that was just such an explosive move back up. And I just want to note, there's just so many stocks bouncing off supports lately, whether it's EA or whether it's Intel or, it's insane. We're seeing a lot of support bounces back to the upside over the next couple days. So definitely keep your eyes on those gaming stocks. I think it's really worth keeping all these gaming stocks on the radar. And my next play is actually going to be SQ or Square, which was the big money play from a couple days ago. Now, there was $30 million put into the June 16th Square 60 strike calls. These calls were pretty expensive, and I was kind of eyeing them up here as we went on, Mike. But, there was a huge uptrend today on the Square chart. And I'm going to really keep my eyes on Square. It started breaking above that double top at 78. And if we hold and get this continuation up above 80 tomorrow, I'm going to watch for even more calls. And, we don't even have to necessarily trade it as far out as the big money did at the 60 strike for June. If you start to see some good breakouts here, we could maybe trade some nice intraday plays on it as well. So I don't know. I think Square is awesome, and it's good to see it finally uptrending. And it's almost like an earnings continuation as well.
Boom. So now let's get right into the momentum plays for tomorrow. With the first one, we have Shopify to the upside.
Yeah, Shop is sitting right on a big resistance, right around 41.50. So if we're able to break that to the upside tomorrow, go ahead and watch for some calls. That is a major resistance from the past couple weeks. All
right, with the next one, we have Intel also to the upside.
Yeah, Mike, we both talked about this one yesterday to the upside, and go ahead and make them break above 26.30, which is that high of day. I don't know what's going on with Intel, Mike, but that long-term support they're bouncing off of is fantastic.
You know it. Now with the last one, we have Boeing, but we need both directions on this one.
Yeah, Boeing had a hell of a day, I'll say, but it looks like it's a little bit overextended. So if they break above 211, watch for some calls to the upside. I think they could end up maybe going on a nice continuation, but if they fall back under 209, which was a big support they broke towards the end of the day, watch for some puts down, and I wouldn't be surprised if they pulled back a little bit.
All right, there we go. So you guys heard Tom. We have that downside level for potential day trade to the downside. We have that upside level for potential day trade to the upside tomorrow. And then don't forget about Intel and Shopify for potential day trades up. But it is now time for my favorite part of the video, and that's the big money trade of the day. We had $1.089 million go into the XHB 65 strike puts that expire on June 16th of 2023. For my people out there who don't trade options, the main thing you need to know is that this is a bet that XHB will fall down. More specifically, this is a trade in the options market where the big money trader will make a ton of money if this stock tanks. This is actually an ETF filled with a bunch of home builders. So given that housing prices have been falling and slowing down, and given that interest rates have been on the rise, it makes sense that home builders would struggle. Not only have I seen puts go into XHB, but I've also seen a lot of other puts go into individual home builder companies like DHI and then KBH. So overall, I kind of like this play. I don't think it's like the only play someone should have, but I do think it's good in the sense of, it offers good downwards exposure, but it also is, in my opinion, targeting a weak industry right now.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that KBH big money play has been on fire ever since February 8th. That thing has been on quite the downtrend. I know today it came back up a little bit as the market did, but overall it's been on quite the downtrend, and that play should be doing very, very well right now. It's actually going to end up expiring here pretty soon, so I'm curious to see what's going to end up happening with this stock. But Mike, that's a pretty big play on XHB. I like these home builders to the downside as well. I will note, though, that there's a pretty big support here around 66 on XHB that I will be watching a little bit. For everybody trading out there, it might be maybe a good idea, once you see a break below there, start to enter there rather than, entering today.
Yep. All righty, there we go. So, Tom, for tomorrow, we had the SPY that's not going down without a fight. We have some stocks moving to the upside with some good momentum, but other stocks are, I guess you could say, stuck in the mud like Tesla and Netflix. Going into tomorrow, do you have any final thoughts or anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm really hoping for some good movement. We have a lot of earnings tonight still with Costco, AI, ChargePoint, a lot of other stocks like that. We're starting to move a little bit, so I'm going to watch those tomorrow for some possible continuations all around. But, there's not really too much left on the radar. If we go look at the calendar, there's a little bit of stuff. It looks like Bostic speaking tomorrow. Guys, keep him on the radar. He definitely moved the market today, so who knows? Maybe one of these speeches tomorrow could end up causing some volatility. So maybe keep these on the radar, but it is a Friday as well. So I wouldn't think that they want to maybe cause too much volatility, but you never know. I honestly, Mike, I will say that news today really caught me off guard. Once the SPY started moving, I was like, wow, that ended up being pretty good for the SPY.
All right, there we go. Before we close out, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. When you subscribe, you'll see our videos recommended to you more often. And we also want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, STK, in the StockedUp Discord. You've only been in the chat for a couple days, but you've been super active so far, so definitely make sure to keep it up. Besides that, thank you guys so much for watching, and let's end the week strong.